Let us unite in a spirit of reflection as I offer this prayer written by H.P. Rivers, Blessed are the queer. Blessed are the wanderers seeking affirmation. Blessed are the worshipers praying from closets, pulpits, pews, and hardship. Blessed are the lovers of leaving family and familiarity, leaving tables where love is not being served. Blessed are those who stay. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for justice, for they will be satisfied. Blessed are the queer, disciples of truth, living, breathing, sacred reflections of divine love. May it be so. This reading, One Love. We are one, a diverse group of proudly kindred spirits, here not by coincidence, but because we choose to journey together. We are active and proactive. We care deeply. We live our love as best we can. We are one, working, eating, laughing, playing, singing, storytelling, sharing, and rejoicing, getting to know each other, taking risks, opening up, questioning, seeking, searching, trying to understand, struggling, making mistakes, paying attention, asking questions, listening, living our answers, learning to love our neighbors, learning to love ourselves, apologizing and forgiving with humility, being forgiven through grace, creating the beloved community together. We are one. We know that religious spaces haven't always been welcoming places for all people, especially when it comes to gender and sexuality. Each of us has worth and dignity, and that worth includes our gender and our sexuality. In the 1980s and 90s, when the word welcoming became a code word for lesbian, gay, and bisexual people, the Unitarian Universalist Association launched a welcoming congregation program to help us learn how to undo homophobia and later transphobia, prejudice against transgender people, in our hearts and minds, our congregations, and our communities. 2019 marked the 30th anniversary of the release of the Welcoming Congregation program. For 30 years, Unitarian Universalist congregations have taken concrete actions to more intentionally welcome people of all sexual orientations and gender identities and be a force for justice for LGBTQ+ people in our congregations and in the larger community. 75% of all UU congregations have gone through the Welcoming Congregation program. UUNB has gone through the program. That's what makes us officially designated a welcoming congregation. UUNB did the work to make sure LGBTQ+ people are full members of our community. Unitarian Universalists not only open our doors to people of all sexual orientations and gender identities, but we also value diversity of sexuality and gender and see it as a spiritual gift. Creating inclusive religious communities and working for LGBTQ+ justice and equity is a core part of who we are, and all of who we are is sacred. There's an old saying that even the best preachers only have 1 or 2 sermons. We just keep finding new ways to share them. In my case, I sincerely hope that what you glean from the core of my sermons is a theology of love. Because love is the core foundation of my religious understanding. Love as a religious practice extends our solidarity and compassion. It extends care beyond the personal to seeking the liberation and wholeness of every person. It reminds us of our fundamental interdependence with all of life. Not a love that is simply an emotion or an expression of the bonds of loyalty felt within a group, but that agape love from the Christian perspective that denotes brotherly and sisterly love for one another and the love for the all-pervading mystery that some call God. In personal relationships, when we love someone, we wish for them the fullest unfolding and development of who they are. We wish for them safety, freedom, joy, and life. This understanding that love and justice are inseparable was nurtured in me by my very Christian great-grandmother, who told me that I was just as worthy as the Jewish man who owned a store on one corner in our neighborhood and the Chinese man who owned a store on the opposite corner. She believed in a God of her own understanding that guided her to clothe the naked and feed the hungry, to open her doors to the physically abused wives in the neighborhood, as well as the sex workers that hung out at the local juke joint across the railroad tracks. Her belief, and in my observation of her doing good, has been reinforced by the stories and theology of Unitarian Universalism, that no one is outside the circle of love. It is this understanding of love that has strengthened the most precious gift that Unitarian Universalism has offered me. The gift of a religion that teaches us that the work of justice is inseparable from a faith rooted in love. We live in some heartbreaking times. There are also defining times. An onslaught of oppressive laws and policies threaten the lives of well-being of our children, young people, adults, and policies threaten the lives of our families and the very fabric of communities. We are experiencing the political targeting of transgender and non-binary children and adults, including the banning of gender-affirming health care, bans against trans kids playing sports, and laws criminalizing drag. In the past 3 years, at least 15 states passed laws barring transgender children from joining sports teams that align with their gender identity. 8 states already have banned gender-affirming care for youth, with more such laws likely to come. These dehumanizing policies and rhetoric create an environment that can provoke physical violence and further discrimination. we are also witnessing efforts to criminalize reproductive health care, comprehensive education about race, Black history, gender, and numerous issues of human rights that are spreading across countless states nationally. These attacks cut to the heart of our fundamental religious belief in the inherent worth and dignity of each person, a fundamental right of conscience, and the values of personal agency that give us all the opportunity to live fully into our whole selves. However, Unitarian Universalism affirms what is true yesterday, today, and every day, that we are clear and unapologetic that our LGBTQ plus siblings are sacred and whole and divine. We understand that the full expression of diversity of gender and sexuality is a gift. Our commitment to love and justice, to inclusive ministry and prophetic action is deep and life-affirming. We actively organize to promote the leadership of Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities. We work to end anti-Black racism, organize for racial justice, disability justice, gender justice, LGBTQ plus equality, and support reproductive justice, climate justice, and more. Trans people are divine. There is no such thing as other people's children. It's up to us to join together in fighting for a world in which all of us are free and thriving. I was one of 165 UUs attending the March 13 Texas UU Justice Ministry Legislative Action Day in Austin. We came from 20 different congregations around the state. And according to Reverend Aaron Walter, Executive Director of the Justice Ministry, it was the largest turnout ever. We know that more must be done in our communities, congregations, and within the association itself to protect vulnerable people. We know that more is being asked of us, and more is needed from all of us to respond to this moment with clarity, compassion, and courage. We also know that we have the tools to create safe harbors, to continue to educate our children and communities about the full expression of human sexuality and gender, and the skills to organize, defend our values, and the right of all people to be free and thrive. But we cannot do it alone. As UUs, we understand that we are part of the interdependent web of all creation. We belong to each other, and this knowledge fuels and our faithful commitment to unwaveringly fight for justice, to unwaveringly fight for each other. To be a faith of action with love as our doctrine doesn't mean we live it perfectly, but it does mean we are called again and again to learn, to make amends, to restore relationship, to choose love. I'm especially mindful of the inseparable relationship between love and justice in this time where we need to strengthen our work for justice and human rights. Too often I hear people say, we need more focus on spirituality, not justice. Or we need more focus on justice and less on the pastoral. But to divide the two is to weaken both. It has been said that there are no great deeds, only small ones done with great love. We must look to the practices of what's called the daily breads of our common lives for examples of love. That means reminding ourselves of the details it takes to care for another through shaping traditions, obligations, and structures within our communities, and not just by paying lip service to justice. It means working together to create a better world so that we will all thrive and not merely survive. I know amongst all the injustices, the issues are not just political, partisan, or economic. On a fundamental level, they are spiritual challenges, and they reflect the way we have come as a society to denigrate the value of love and compassion as an essential spiritual and moral value. However, I write of love to both bear witness to the dangers that we face and also to call for a return to love. We are endowed with the boundless capacity to love, but when we are filled with emotions like fear and anger, we shield love's pulsating rays. To be a Unitarian Universalist in the context of a pained, broken, and unjust world is to be moved by a love that recognizes and honors our interdependence. It is my hope that we do not turn away from responding to these times with our faith and our ways of nurturing community. May all of these offer us deeper spiritual practices that cultivate the sustenance we need to be a powerful force of love and justice. The center of our being is towards the propensity to love, because it is the natural alignment within the universal flow. The poet Alice Walker tells us that love's only concern is that the beating of our hearts should kill no one. As we work more actively and effectively for justice, may we also use our teachings and practices to nurture our own humanity and capacity for love. Because in order to feel more love, we must uncover our pain, allowing ourselves to heal. In The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle informs that love is a state of being laying deep within, not outside of us. Moreover, if we truly believe that we are interconnected one to another, then there is no differentiating, because love is love. The time is now for Unitarian Universalists everywhere to take action, to live out the values of our faith, to celebrate gender diversity and affirm the sacredness of all genders and honor the spiritual gifts of trans leaders. Fight for justice and liberation for trans people. And finally, become a place where people of all or no genders can be full participants in spiritual community. From my heart to yours, may it be so.